Hello and welcome to the CTQ Smartcast on habits, routines, and systems, where today we have with us Sumeet. Welcome to the Smartcast, Sumeet.
Hi, everybody. Omkar, good morning to you.
Good morning, Sumeet. For all of you who don't know him, Sumeet is a management professional based out of Bombay. He's also an avid quizzer. He quizzes with the Bombay Quiz Club. And he also happens to be a fan of CTQ. So glad to have you on the Smartcast, Sumeet. And let's dive right in. What was one habit for you that was really difficult to build? You still managed to do it.
For me, one of the things that was persistent was that I was looking forward to getting back to the reading habit, over the many years. And I had a plethora of books. So if you can see my virtual background also, I want to give an impression that there are many with me. That's something which I badly wanted to get back to the reading habit. And as things would have it, about 2-3 years ago, I came across CTQ. Of course, I knew Ramanand from the quizzing connections. And I happened to understand about the CTQ compound. I was like, great. It was just like it happened like an answer to a question which was persistent for quite a while. And then I got into the habit and I absolutely loved it, the format and the way it started for me. And it's been an enjoyable journey so far.
Well, a relatively simple solution to a persistent problem, if I may put it that way.
Absolutely. So if I may, Omkar, this was one of the habits. The second one, not on the reading side, if I may, this was on the financial side. Okay. I don't know how relevant it would be, but this is one thing which I went through. Basically, as far as financial management was concerned, I had spread my investments across different asset classes. And that was another thing. Over many years, I wanted to sit back and optimize, make a plan for the short term, medium term, long term. And 2020, the way the year went past, it gave great opportunity to save on a lot of unproductive time, right? You would agree. And that gave me a time to also look at some of the things which I badly wanted to do some research. And I would think that was one of the achievements or things that I'm happy about, which I was able to accomplish as a habit. So as a habit, I now know my investments very well because I've optimized and brought it to a smaller use case kind of a thing. And I monitor it daily. So that's the second habit, which was I wanted to inculcate and I was able to.
So keeping an eye on it, keeping an eye on your investments and making sure they are going in the right direction is another routine that you've added to your day.
True.
And a lot of people have suffered in 2020, but for some of us, some of the things have worked out pretty well. And this looks like it was one of those.
Yes.
Since 2020 came up, I think I would be amiss without asking you about any other systems and routines that you managed to build during the year. So tell us a little bit about that.
See, on the system tool side, basically, yes, the reading habit, the format of the CTQ compound, the way it started. What I got myself to do is have a time between 9 to 9:30 a.m. So 9:30 a.m. is when office starts, 9:30 to 6:30, which is the office business hours. I figured out that between 9 to 9:30, I have to finish the article, which Ramanand or somebody posts on the compound. And that's the time I wanted to give it for the reading habit, right?
Okay.
Now, what has happened is I have been partially successful on that due to various reasons, but that's an endeavor and I'm sure I'll get into the routine in the coming time because this is just a thing which I enforced upon myself in December. So just early days.
So basically, having that slot pre-booked in your day ensures that the commitment does not slip to the extent possible. Unless there is any external intervening force, this time is reserved for the reading. This time you have, I'm sure you have similar slots reserved for other important things in your day.
Yes.
So what I'm taking back from this is, it is important to plan accordingly, and then only then can you execute on it.
Absolutely. If I may, again, with your permission, I might want to reference a friend of mine, like a childhood friend of mine, who is doing exceedingly well in the US. He's a CEO of a biotech company.
Okay.
And like in December, we had like multiple Zoom calls because one of his colleagues won the Nobel Prize for chemistry.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yes. This guy, something which we are all proud of, that he went to IIT and then did his MS and then did his PhD and all in the US. So one of the things that I learned from him, and this is I'm talking about when we were in 7th and 8th standard, okay, was that he had slots for everything. I'm talking about it since you mentioned the word slot. So if he went to his house, so in his book, it would be like he would have a timetable, 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. physics, 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. maths, 8 a.m. to 8:30 cricket, 8:30 to 9 breakfast, 9 to 10:30 chemistry, and so on and so forth. It sounded weird, it sounded outlandish, but it's something which he used to do. And I'm sure that has helped him in the long run, and look where he is right now.
I'm sure it has. That amount of discipline shines through even later on in life. We like to talk about these things called keystone habits, and how adopting one of these generally leads to spillover good effects on other aspects of life. And this just seems like a perfect candidate for one of those. So, Sumit, since you mentioned childhood, since you mentioned your childhood friend, something I want to ask you is, what do you think are some habits that we as adults can pick up from children? Because when we are kids, good habits are made such a big thing. People try to inculcate good habits as children. But if we take a retrospective lens at the whole situation, what are some good habits, or what are some habits that we might be able to pick up from children as adults?
Sure. All of us know this, right? That children are intrinsically curious about things, right? And they ask a lot of questions. They want to know about things. They wish to know why are things in a particular way, why developments happen the way they happen ultimately. So I think as we grow, somewhere down the line, we lose that curiosity bone or muscle or whatever. So that's something which I think we should not give up on. I'm not saying this could be true for everybody, but whoever had that, whoever was curious about things, whoever was interested in different topics of interest. So that's one thing definitely we should not give up, the art of curiosity. To of course, it may not be right to keep on asking questions around us, but now with the resources available with us, we can definitely look for resources on the net, through books and etc. That's definitely one of the things that I would think. And since you mentioned about the quizzing part also, having the quizzing background implies basically some of us have that deep down intrinsic aspiration to know about things, or be interested in the entire ecosystem of knowing things, if I may call that.
Yeah, quizzing is all about knowing things and putting them together to figure it out.
Absolutely.
So it's a little bit about consuming information. It's a little bit about making connections. It's a little bit about maintaining that curious edge, that curious muscle that you rightly. And since we are talking a little bit about the consumption side of things, about a varied diet of information, I know that you recently added a new information routine in the form of listening to one audio piece a day that we curate.
Right.
So, how are you ensuring that is sticky for you?
That's the second thing which I would say I'm extremely happy about, which I developed in the last year, in 2020. Now, this is basically linked to the reading habit itself. Now, one is the curated articles which come from CTQ Compound, which are brilliant, and like for 15, 20 minutes of the day, you are reading some topic which invariably you wouldn't have, or rather very rarely you would have come across if you were to look for it yourself. But of course, you have chosen certain books, you are subscribed to certain blogs which you want to finish, and things like that. But then that entire thing about whether you've been able to spare a slot, finish what you wanted to complete or not.
Exactly.
What I found interesting was I wanted to take a shot at the listening part of it, reading articles, audiobooks and all that. And this is the other thing which I was like, just, you can say, flirting around, trying to see what could happen there. But nothing had come out of it in 2020 or before that. And again, CTQ came to the rescue. I think it was Harish's post or your post, I'm not sure, which I read and then got interested. And then I didn't have your number, Omkar. I've been interacting with mostly Ramanand and Harish. So I think I messaged Harish, and because his name was there, and I asked him how it worked. So the first question I asked him was whether it would be too much. I already have the reading habit, and to add on the audio part of it, will it be too much? And then he gave me some examples about how it worked for him, and he recommended that it wouldn't be an overkill, better to go for it. And I wouldn't be less happier. It has worked out really well, and I'm truly enjoying the audio pieces. Now, that's one of the things that I may want to connect this to is when the reading habit started earlier. Ramanand used to always make a mention about a tip that you want to add a habit to an existing one. So people usually have this thing that I have tea between 3 to 4 p.m. I meditate between 6 to 7, which is like a regular routine for them. And then to piggyback the reading thing works well. That's one of the tips. Yeah. And let me confess, Omkar. So I was like wondering, which is this habit of mine which I could piggyback on? And I had none. I was like, so this is the 9 a.m. thing is just a thing which I started for the reading part. But what I started doing is I also wanted to go for walks in the morning, which I started. And there I could find a great way I could associate the audio part to my walks, and I'm able to complete both.
That's excellent. That's like killing 2 birds with 1 stone.
Absolutely.
Building your physical muscles as well as your mental muscles.
Right. Yeah, I'm like, it's just a medium paced walk. It's not, I'm not sure how physically it'll help me, but the fresh air definitely does. Yeah, but yeah, you're right. It's a great release physically as well as you're listening to something that you wanted to.
Uh, that's quite something. So it's very interesting just to see how one habit can kick off another, how another habit can kick off, like a chain of positive influences in life, right?
Yes.
One question that I wanted to ask you is about habits and systems that have had a major impact both on life and in your work. So tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. There have been, I would say, a few habits which I have picked up. I could say this is not all on the work front, which have held me in good stead. The first is, and the last year that went past, like truly, it got me to emphasize that all the more. So this was about time, like whether it's in-person meetings or you'll say you'll tell your client, because I've been part of the business development sales function, client relationship function for a majority of my career, dealing with the external customers and all that. So it's very important that you respect the time of others and of course the way you manage your time. And I came across this quote recently which said that being early, I'm sure you have heard of it, being early is on time, being on time is late, and being late is unacceptable. Yeah, so that thing that got drilled in my head so much, especially with the times that we went through when it came to Zoom calls, MS Teams, Google Meets, because most of the interactions were happening virtually. Exactly. So I made it a habit to come 5 minutes before the time starts. It gives a little bit of a time to rehearse. It gives some time to engage with somebody who like you has come 5 minutes early. Yeah. So that's like a habit which I picked up, and I hope I'll be able to continue with that even when things go back in person, to arrive at a place before time. That's one. Also, a few things like defining your time, that your personal space, even during a work day. If you have a lunch break between, let's say, 1 to 2, no calls between those, and switch off the phone, even if possible. Because I've seen during this entire lockdown period, there were calls happening, there were meetings being set, and I had to convey this even to some of my seniors, CEO as well, that this is lunch break, right? And so that's something which has been positively accepted, and I think we should inculcate that and spread it, because we need to be very focused on our office time, but when there is a break in the middle, we should be away from it. That's the second thing I would like to add. And again, on the work front, I would say before you're calling your key customers or anybody for that matter, one thing which I've learned and I'm happy to share is to check on SMS whether you could call somebody. I've appreciated that. Rather, people have appreciated that point. And instead of just picking up the phone and calling them, if you just send an SMS or a WhatsApp message, whether you could call them, that people appreciate that. That's something which I would like to share.
Yeah, that doesn't catch them off guard in case they are busy with something else at the moment.
Exactly. And even if you're persistent, then they'll appreciate it, and they'll perhaps say, not now, call me after 15 minutes, call me after 2 hours. And there is a better chance of engagement rather than you call and then they cut the call and then don't respond.
So all of these are some of those small things which have a disproportionately large effect, a disproportionately large impact down the line.
Absolutely, it does.
Okay, before we go into some really heavy territory, let's come back to slightly lighter sounding topics, slightly lighter sounding questions before we end today's smartcast. Some rapid fire questions for you, Sumeet.
Oh, okay.
After waking up, and as a quizzer, I'm sure you'll enjoy rapid fire questions. So after waking up, what is the first thing you do?
After waking up, I switch off the alarm and I check my Twitter feed.
Oh, okay. And how does that help your anxiety?
That's one of the things which I want to undo and reduce my exposure to that. But that's my way of catching up on the news. Yeah, maybe for 10 minutes.
Staying informed.
Yes.
Because Twitter is that way a great tool to just keep an eye out on what's happening in the moment.
Exactly.
Okay. What is your favorite reading compound article?
There have been many. In fact, I've been bookmarking them all around. There was one article which came in 2019. It was on confirmation bias. I think it was from Collaborative Fund or one of those sources. That I thought was a brilliant article. I couldn't come out of it for days together, and I read it multiple times.
Okay. One habit related tip that you would like to give someone who's just starting out with a new habit?
Yeah, I would say that basically one should be around the vicinity of the habit, right? Like the way it happened to me. I was around the habit, I was looking for sources, I was looking for inspiration, and I was able to stumble upon what I wanted, correct? So that tip is that basically you need to not stop thinking about your habit or not stop giving a pause to it. I'm sure the solution will emerge somehow.
So in some sense, what you are mentioning is adjusting your environment to make sure that the habit and its related material is always there within view, within sight.
Absolutely, absolutely. So it's like your deepest desires manifesting. So you keep talking about it. Perhaps you share with your confidants or your associates, and then somewhere down the line you will come across a possible option for you.
And one last question before we end. Any books or resources that you would recommend which helped you build your habits and routines?
Again, going back to the admission, Omkar, so a lot of books are unread. They are in the middle of reading. I've yet to finish many of those. That's my yearly resolution to finish the books that I've already bought. But one book which I'm reading still is the Checklist Manifesto by Dr. Atul Gawande, which has been covered by CTQ and wonderfully by you folks. So that's one thing which I found quite inspirational. And the second thing is the Curio.io app, which works out very well. So yeah.
Just to sum up what you've said so far, make your habits visible, keep it in your field of vision so that it's always at the back of your mind and something will pop out of it.
Absolutely.
There are always resources that you can go to. Never let curiosity die, because we have information that is available at our fingertips for all sorts of interesting things, all sorts of interesting topics.
Absolutely.
All right, Sumeet, thank you so much for taking the time out. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I hope all the habits that you've picked up so far, that you deliberately wanted to continue with just as much enthusiasm as they are right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Truly appreciate. I wish I could say it in the beginning, but I could say it now. So I truly appreciate the work done by you, Harish, Ramanand, and everybody at CTQ. The world that we live in today is so much full of information. There's so much distraction and opportunities for us to lose focus on. Yeah. And you all act in that particular space where you are curating things for the rest of us, bringing information and doing a whole lot of exciting stuff, which is like a great outlet from the busy lives that we live in. Thank you to you and everybody else.